This is Unit 7, Day 5, so we are now going to be multiplying polynomials, okay? The weekly objective is the students will know how to multiply polynomials using the product rule of exponents. Students will understand that multiplying polynomials means using the distributive property. And students will be able to simplify polynomial expressions using a will know how to be able to multiply, polynomials by a monomial or binomial. And I can't spell multiply, can I? All right, there we go. All right, so next slide is we're just going to review what the distributive property means. The distributive property means that we're not reviewing essentially the distributive property. I want to explain to you how you can see this visually on what we're doing. I want to bring back something that you've already seen before, which is like creating a table. You've seen that in biology, and you've seen that in elementary school when you would make the little table about multiplying 10 by 20 or the 10 stick and the little 1 stick or the big square that represented 100. We're going to do that, but we're using numbers instead of actual manipulatives like the actual lines. Okay. What we're going to do is the first one is going to tell us how many rows I'm going to have. So I have -10, that means 1 row. The second thing right here is going to tell me how many columns I'm going to have. I have 2 terms, so I have 2 columns. Now I'm going to do what we know about your multiplication chart. You multiply the row and the column. So -10 and -5 is 50. Notice I didn't say anything about the x because you're not multiplying by another variable, so the x just gets brought down. -1 times -10 is +10. That means that together my answer will just be 5x plus 10. 50x, I'm sorry. All right, let's do this one. And I guess I don't have the color for this as white, that's why I can't see the cursor. All right, here we go. Okay. So remember, there's a 1 in front of this x. So 1 times 4 is 4. And I bring down the x. To get the x squared, all I do is go to Insert, Special Characters. I make sure that the category says number, right? And I put a 2 right there. Then I do -4 times 4 is -16. And I bring down the variable because I'm not multiplying by another variable. -1 times 4 is -4. Now, in my final answer, I'm going to put 4x, insert, special character, the 2 for the exponent, close the box, minus 16x minus 4. Now, how did I get this? I forgot to go over that there's 3 terms in the top one, so I have 3 columns, 1 term. Okay. The first one is going to tell you how many rows you're going to have. The second one is going to tell you how many columns you're going to have. Okay. Then inside, this is what I'm going to use to combine my like terms and get my solution, get my actual answer. Okay. My simplified expression. Okay. Now that was just a distributive property. Now we're going to use that and we're going to distribute by a binomial. To distribute by a binomial, which is 1 term, you're going to distribute to every term in the parentheses. Use the product rule, which means to multiply the coefficients and add the exponents for like variables. You can delete those if you want. I like to just move the boxes to make it like a big grand reveal. All right, so here's the expression that we want to do. All right, I have 1 term, so that means that's going to be 1 row, and I have 2 terms in the second parenthesis, so I have 2 columns. All right, so I'm going to multiply the number and the number, the coefficients, which comes out to be 10. I bring the variable because they both have the same variable. Now I add the exponents. Remember, that's an imaginary 1 right here. Okay, so 1 plus 2 is 3. Now I go to the next column, and I'm going to multiply -7 by 2. That gives me -14. I bring down the x because there is no other variable. There's only the x. And because there is no other variable, I bring also the 2 down. Or you can say the 2 over because it was on the right. But I bring it over because there is no other variable, so it wasn't multiplied by another variable. It keeps its own exponent. Now for my final answer, which I forgot to put a box in, we're just going to control copy this. Oops. So copy, and I'll leave it here for you guys. All right, so it's 10x. Go to insert special character to get the third, close, and then minus 14x, and then insert special character squared, and then we close. This is my final answer right here. I went from this top part to this bottom part. I'm gonna move these over so we can have more room maybe to write it. No, it's not gonna show up. I just don't want it to be so close. All right, we'll put it down here. All right. So I did this, doing this over here. Okay. I made this, I separated it, I made it into columns and rows to make it easier to multiply. So keep myself nice and neat. Okay. Okay, so on this next slide, I kind of set it up already for you. I set up 3 out of the 4 because I want you to set up the last one. So whatever's on the left is going to go over here to the right, and that's 8x. And then 6x plus 6 is going to go on the top. All right, that's 2 terms, that's 2 columns, 1 term, 1 row. Now I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply the coefficients, which 6 times 8 is 48. I'm going to put the variable down because they both have an x, and now I'm going to add their exponent. The exponent is 1 plus 1 is 2. Now, if you don't want to go to insert, that's okay. You don't have to. You can press Shift 6 and put a 2. That way we know, hey, that's the exponent, okay? That little arrow pointing upward is trying to tell you that you're using an exponent, okay? And it's okay to use that if that's what y'all want to do. Now on this one, we're multiplying 6 and 8. That's a positive 48. Now maybe you want to know why didn't we use a sign in front of the first one. We didn't put a sign because it's already positive. You don't have to put a plus sign to know it's positive. Now if it were a negative, then yeah, we would have had to put a negative sign to make everybody know that that 48 was negative. The sign who needs to make sure that it has one is that second one, because you need to make sure that it's a plus or that it's a minus because it's separating the terms, remember? All right, now we multiply 6 times 8 and we bring down the variable, we bring over the variable because there's no other variable. All right, so we have to bring it over because it's part of the 8x on the outside. All right, so right there, my answer is 48x squared plus 48. Now right now I'm not having you write the answer. I want y'all to practice filling into the table. Okay, let's do number 2. 7 times 6 is 42, and shift number 6, and you add the exponent. 1 plus 1 is 2. Remember, it's an imaginary 1 for that exponent when that variable's there. Now we multiply the 3 and the 7, so that's plus 21, and we bring over the n because there's no other n to be multiplied. 7 times 3 is 21. We do R, shift, hold the shift key, and press the 6. They're both 1, so I add 1 plus 1 is 2. Over to the next box. Negative 8 times 3 is negative 24, and I bring over the variable because there's no other variable to multiply by. Right. Here's an empty table for you to fill in, or you can say chart. Okay. The one that's in the second parentheses or in the parentheses is what's going up at the top. So 8k, arrow over, negative 8. What is going over here on this row on the right is the number that's on the outside, or the term that's on the outside, which is 8. Okay. I'm going to leave this alone, and I want you to fill it in. So I want you to pause and then come back and make sure you have the right answer. 64k. Now that's what we got because there is no other variable, so we brought the variable down from the top. On this side, in the second box, we did negative 8 and 8. There is no variable, so we just multiply the two coefficients. All right, let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to want you to fill in everything. Well, actually, I'm going to pause it. Well, first, let me move on. So here's the next four. I want you to do this on your own.
I need Deja Curry to report to the front, please. Deja Curry, please report to the call ramp.
So right now I'm going to pause and I want you to fill this in. Okay. Please pause and then come back and make sure that you have the same things that we have, and we'll go over it. Okay, I didn't want to wait so long to make sure you filled in the table. I wanted to make sure you got the outside correctly. So here, check, make sure that you set up the outside correctly. And I'll pause again and let's make sure you can fill in the inside. All right, so 10 times 1 is 10. A times A, you add the exponent, so that's how I got a 2. Negative 10 times 10 is negative 100. Both of these two are not the same base. Because they're not the same base, we bring them both down. And it's always the first alphabetical letter first and then the second. So A, B. Number 6. All we did was multiply each coefficient by 2 and bring down the variable because there was no variables to multiply. Here we did 6 times 7, which is 42. Added the exponent, that's 1 and 1, so that gives you 2. Then 4 times 7 is a positive 28. Y and X are not the same variable, so we bring them down alphabetically first, X, and then Y. Next one, 8 times 4 is 32. A times A, you add the exponents because they're like bases, and you get 2. And then you multiply negative 4 times 4, negative 32. You bring over their variables because they're not the same. You can't add you can't add exponents, and it's always alphabetical first, A and then B. Okay, so that was by a monomial and a binomial. So now let's look what it would look with something a little bit longer. I filled it out for you. I have 3 terms here, so three columns. I have 1 term at the end, so 1 over here. 3 terms at the top and 1 right here. All right. 3 times 1 is 3. And shift 6, remember to hold down the shift key and press the 6. Add the exponents because they're the same variable. 2 plus 1 is 3. Remember, I get a 1 because this n doesn't have an exponent, and when it doesn't have one, it's automatically a 1. Okay? No exponent means that it automatically has an invisible 1. It has to have a 1 because if it didn't have a 1, the variable wouldn't be there. Remember? All right. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. N times n, you add the exponents. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then plus 15n. And why did I just get n? Because this one right here, this top 5 doesn't have a variable, so we just bring it over. 2 times 2 is 4. K, you're adding the exponents. 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay, 5, and I forgot to put the plus right here. Plus 5, so that's plus 10. Add the exponents because they both have the same variable. Shift, hold down the shift and the 6, and put 4 because 3 plus 1 is 4. And move this over because that cannot be in this room. All right. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And bring over the variable because there's no other variable to multiply it by. And there we go. 3. All right, so now let's see what happens when we multiply by a binomial. Let's see how the table is going to look like. All right, so here we're going to be multiplying a binomial by a binomial. You fill in the table. Use the circles to determine what your like or different terms are, and then simplify by combining like terms or bringing it down. I don't know why I put semicolon, but we'll put 5. All right, so the first one is telling me how many rows am I going to have. And I put it in the wrong spots. And then this was going to tell us a number of columns. So I have 2 and 2. So this is 4. Okay. We're going to do exactly what we did on the first one. We're just adding an extra row at the bottom. Okay. So v times v, you add the exponent, so v squared. Negative v times the 1, because there's an imaginary coefficient of 1 for the v, will be negative 3v. Now I go to the next row. I'm multiplying these columns by negative 1. So negative 1 times v is negative 1v. And then negative 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3. I'm going to show you all my different terms. My different terms are this one. I only have 1 v squared, and I only have 1 constant. My like terms are the negative 1v and the negative 3v. Those are the ones that I'm going to combine. So the oval, I'm going to combine. Now I always have to do highest exponent first. So the highest exponent is v squared. Then my v's are going to be my next highest exponent, and I'm combining those. So negative 1 plus negative 3 is negative 4, which now is going to be set as a minus because it has something in front of it. And then the plus 3 is the constant, so it stays at the end. All right, let's type this one in. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, first of all, sorry, I need to backtrack and tell you what this is right here. This says 2x plus 3 squared. In order for me to multiply, I have to expand it. Remember, we talked about expanded form as being with no exponent. It's telling us that this 2 is telling me that 2x plus 3 should show up twice. So I show up twice, that means I put 2 columns and 2 rows. All right, now 2 times 2 is 4. Adding the exponents, they're both 1, so when I add them, I get 2. 3 times 2 is a positive 6. Bring over the x. I go to the next row. 2 times 3 is positive 6. Bring over the x. 3 times 3 is plus 9. Now I'm going to use my circles to figure out what's different, which is my constant, and my highest coefficient is my highest exponent is a different term. There's no other term like it. Well, that has the same exponent. And then I combine my like terms. They're like terms because they both have the same variable with the same exponent. So my highest coefficient goes first, 4x squared. I combine my oval, which is 6x plus 6x, that's plus 12x, and I bring down my constant plus 9. All right, let's do this one. 8b minus 1, and Miss J put them in the wrong spot. I remember the first one. But I think I did this for a reason, because I wanted to show you that when it's a 2 by 2, it can be in either way, and it's still going to come up to be the same answer, okay? So 8b times 5b. 8 times 5 is 40, and you add your b's, because they have the same exponent, the same letter, so you add their exponents, and you get 2. Negative 5 times 5, negative 1 times 5b is negative 5b. I do the plus. Right? 8 times 5 is plus 40, and I bring down the variable because the 5 doesn't have a variable to it. And then negative 1 times the positive 5 is a negative 5. I use my circle to determine what's different, which is my highest exponent and my constant. They don't have any other like terms. And then I use the oval to show you what is like. I'm going to bring down the highest exponent, which is 40b squared. I'm going to add the like terms. So a positive 40 plus a negative 5 is a positive 35b. And then I'm going to bring my constant. My constant is always going at the end. It's either going to be your constant or the one that has the smallest exponent. Okay? All right. So we're going to go to the next one. We got a next slide. All right. So I've left it all blank right here. So first thing I want you to do is set it up first. Okay? So I want you to pause here and just set up the outside first, and then we'll do the inside together. Okay, so hopefully you have it set up the same way. All right. Make sure they all have. All right. We're going to multiply b squared times negative 4b. So the coefficient right here is a 1. So 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. Oh, sorry. Negative 4. Now I'm going to add the exponents because they both have b. So 2 plus the 1 that's right here for the exponent will be 3. So shift 6, 3. Then 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. b. I add the exponents, I get squared. Okay. Negative 5 times negative 4 is positive 20, and then the b. Now I'm going to multiply this by negative 3. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. I bring down the variable because there's no variable with that negative 3, so negative b squared comes down. Positive 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. The b comes down because there's no variable with negative 3. Then negative 5 times negative 3 is a positive 15. All right, my like term, I'm going to start with those. I have the b squareds. Then I have the b's. My terms that don't have anything else that's alike is the 15 and the negative 4b to the third. So remember, negative b, 4b to the third has to go first because that has the highest exponent. And I'm going to combine my oval, the b squared ones, and that's negative 3 plus negative 12, that's negative 15 b squared. Now I'm going to add my b's, negative 9 plus 20, that's plus 11b. And I bring my constant at the end. Right, this one right here, 4 times 3 is 12. J, you add the exponents, and I get 2. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. You bring over the j because there's no other j to multiply by. 5 times 4 is 20. Bring over the j because the 5 doesn't have a j. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. I bring over this because the 20 and the j and the negative 9 both have a j. I have the 12 and the negative 15. They're not like terms, so they don't get combined. I have to bring down my highest exponent first, which is the squared, so 12j squared. I add the ones that are like terms, so both the j's, 20 plus negative, I forgot to put a plus 20 right here, just so that we know that's a plus. All right, a positive 20 plus a negative 9 is a positive 11j, and then a negative 15 at the end because that's the constant. And I don't know why I put 5 instead of k. K times k is k squared because 1 times 1 is 1, and then you add the exponents of the k's. 1 plus 1 is 2. Negative 7 times 1 is negative 7. The 7 doesn't have a k, so I put a k down. I bring it over from the side. 6 times 1 is 6, and I bring the k down from the top because the 6 doesn't have a k. And then negative 7 times 6 is negative 42. My like terms are the ones that have the same k's. My different terms are the 42 and the k squared. Okay, so I'm going to have k squared because that's my highest exponent. Add the ones that have the k's because they're like terms. Positive 6 plus the negative 7 is negative 1k. And then I bring down the negative 42. All right, here, 4 times 4 is 16. N squared because I added the exponents for the n. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8, and I bring over the n because the 2 doesn't have one. And I can't add exponents if I don't only have one letter. So 4 times 2 is a positive 8n, and then negative 2 times positive 4 is negative 4. All right, I circle the ones that are like terms. I circle the ones that are different. Okay. And then I bring the biggest exponent down, which is 16n squared. I add the ones that are like terms. A positive 8 and a negative 8 is going to give me 0. That means that there's no n term. When I get 0, there is no n. Okay? When the coefficient is 0, there is no variable. And so I just bring down my constant. All right, now we're done, and we're going to go and practice before you guys take your checkpoint.